Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for joining us. It's a beautiful morning in New York, and here we are at AIPAD in the Veterans Room, the elaborate, ornate Veterans Room, which, I don't know, seems like an appropriate place. My name is Stephen Fraley. I'm the editor of Dear Dave magazine, and it's my great pleasure to be here this morning with Marcia Resnick, and we're going to have a talk about the work which is also appearing here at AIPAD at the Deborah Bell Gallery.
And we're color coordinated.
We are coordinated. Without comparing notes this morning, we also wore our Converse.
Yes.
And let me start with a formal introduction. And I hope I have this all correct. Marcia Resnick's work is in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art, the Metropolitan Museum, the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, the Jewish Museum, the Morgan Library, and the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, among many other collections. She has received 2 National Endowment of the Arts grants and a retrospective of her work entitled As It Is or Could Be, which is a terrific title, was at the Bowdoin College Museum of Art and traveled to the George Eastman Museum and the Minneapolis Institute of Art. She has been represented by Deborah Bell Gallery for many years, and her work, again, is here at AIPAD for everyone to enjoy. So please welcome Marcia Resnick. Marcia, it's such a privilege, it's such a treat to meet you. We have not met before. I have to confess that about 45 years ago, I would eagerly await the Soho Weekly News for several reasons, but one of the main reasons was to see Resnick's Believe It or Not. At the time, I was a young photographer and thinking a lot about the medium, and its presence in the magazine was always a treat. So unbelievably, we have not met, but here we are. So thank you for agreeing to be here.
Yeah, I got 2 cease and desist orders from Ripley's.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to change the title to, I first changed it to Resnick's Believe It or Else.
Uh-huh.
And then I got the second cease and desist order. They own Believe It Or.
Right. No kidding.
Yeah.
So according to their legal expertise, there could be nothing that came of Believe It Or. That's good to know for all of you who are thinking of
Using it.
Using it.
Well, I don't know if it's still the case, maybe by now. That was back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Right. And it's probably owned by Amazon now, so. Yeah. Well, perhaps that's a good place to start. These conversations are notable for the fact that there is no visual accompaniment to them. So in the process of our conversation, we'll have to describe certain pictures and bodies of work. My calculation is that there are maybe 5 different bodies of work from the mid-70s to the 90s that you made very quickly that were notable then, and I think have gained even more traction over the years. Shall we start with, there's a body of work which is called C, and it's from 1974.
And there's also, before that was landscape.
Okay. And landscape are the pictures in which...
If beautiful landscapes could be eaten, they would be photographed much less. So I photographed less of landscapes than ever before in the history of landscape photography.
So the actual landscape was pushed way down to the bottom.
Yeah,
the bottom,
and
the
this
bottom
sliver of land is on the cover.
of the frame. Yeah.
Sliver of land.
Yeah. But on a conceptual level, it makes a lot of sense because we think of landscape as being a horizontal.
Yeah, they were horizontal.
But
They weren't lush they weren't magnificent mountains. In fact, I got the idea to do it while I was on not a class trip, but a trip to Ansel Adams' house when he was still alive. And I went into his library, and my favorite book was there. Self-portraits by
Lucas Samaras.
you're right.
Yes, yeah.
And
Which is these were the auto Polaroids
Right.
that were quite radical in their time
yes,
in terms of process, in terms of integrating his sensibility into the photograph.
I mean, he physically manipulated the photograph,
Right.
the Polaroids. And in the book, in the front of the book, in Ansel Adams' handwriting, he wrote, "This is not photography."
And did you cross that out?
No,
And
no.
did you say,
No, I just had the
speaking
idea.
of believe it or not, you could have infiltrated.
No, I got the idea of doing the antithesis to Ansel Adams in a book.
Isn't that curious that he would actually? I wonder if he added his opinion to every volume in the library.
I didn't look.
Yeah, yeah. But that was at a particular time where there was a huge community of photographers who adhered to a very classic definition of what was acceptable in the medium. And it was a very rigorous, almost a moral position.
Well, it was also a time when photography was just becoming accepted as a fine art. And it was a very important time and a very exciting time for a student like myself.
Right. So seeing his inscription in the Lucas Samaras book, it seems like that really...
It just reified my
It
feeling
clarified,
about how landscapes should be and how I perceived.
So it was an epiphany.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe at the time that you went from Cooper Union, and then you went to Cal Arts,
Yeah.
and you were there at a particular time. That was very important.
It was important because
I suspect it was important for you as an artist, and I think it was important in terms of art school pedagogy, in the way that art education, visual art education, was considered. John Baldessari's influence, of course, has been notable. Yeah. I mean, I think this brings up an interesting point that upon thinking about your work and reading about it in the last couple of days, I realize its linkage, I think its linkage to a sort of West Coast kind of conceptualism, which is, of course, with John Baldessari and with William Wegman and with Robin Cummings. I always appreciated that brand of conceptualism because of its sense of humor. And when I think of your work and its sense of humor and its interest in language and its interest in the medium, I now understand it as being part of that community of thought.
yes,
Yeah.
it very much was.
Yeah. So I think very, very influential. So there were the landscapes, and then there was...
And also there was minimal painting,
Right.
minimal art, conceptual art. I decided to go to Cal Arts after I heard Alan Capra giving a talk at Cooper Union about how the landscape and the light was in California. And
you're a New York native, so
yeah,
it felt utopian, perhaps.
yeah, it did. Plus, with John Baldessari's post-studio art idea of art, take it outside of the studio, I it not only outside of the studio, but outside for the first time. You know, I did when I was had a teaching assistantship, so I would do blueprints outside on big sheets. Students would expose a big sheet to the chemicals that you use to make blueprints, cyanotypes.
If I remember, there was so much experimentation in terms of the nature of a photograph, as well as the different materials that were.
Yeah, I taught a class, a 3-semester class called Fun with Photography, Son of Fun with Photography, and the Return of Son of Fun with Photography, where we did all kinds of techniques like gum prints and blueprints and milk prints.
And then there was the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Well, I also think about your work in relationship to language and your sense of being a storyteller, which I think is essential to appreciating your work and appreciating your sensibility. But again, going back to Cal Arts, the sort of perhaps the contradiction between, or the playing within what is in the photograph and then how it is captured. You know, the language information that.
Yeah, I don't like the word caption.
Why is that?
I prefer the word text. A caption goes under a photograph. It's beneath a photograph. You know, caption explains something else about the photograph. But with the use of text, the language is a statement of its own, is art.
Right. So there's an equivalence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess there's also, the word caption also indicates a certain literalness, almost a sort of redundancy, which is very much what your relationship is not.
Right. Like all my believe it or nots were completely made up.
Yeah.
Some people believe some of them.
Well, let me, again, since we're here without any visual information, if I may, I would like to read I would like to read a text which accompanied, this is from the body of work, Resnick's Believe It or Not. This is from the Soho Weekly News, and there's a photograph. It's an urban street, and there is what appears to be a vehicle, a car, which has been covered by fabric. It's a fairly nondescript image, perhaps not remarkable in and of itself. And underneath it, Marcia has written, "Given the exorbitant rates of parking garages and the inconvenience of alternative side of the street parking, car camouflage has become a popular means of dodging parking tickets. The first incognito cars were hidden inside oversized bags, which garbage bag companies manufactured to match the trash bags already parked along city curbs," which is brilliant. An even more popular technique involves gluing mirrors all over the vehicle so it reflects the surrounding scenery. The above photo contains 2 incognito cars, one using the highly successful and truly foolproof mirror technique, the other using the less popular bag system. So there's, as far as I'm concerned, there's easily a dozen different points of mirth and humor and intelligence within this relationship between this image. And again, that's the sort of playfulness that you brought to our understanding of the photographic image, and how fluid that can be. So, and I might add, I think it also addresses fairly complicated, sophisticated, theoretical ideas, but without the intellectual baggage. With humor, which of course is one of the things that we appreciate in Baldessari's work. So, yeah.
Thank you for appreciating it correctly.
One of the, lately I've heard a lot of photographers talk about themselves as storytellers. It seems to be an idea that has gained a certain kind of credence. I'm not sure why.
Well, everybody's telling stories these days. You know, filmmakers are storytellers, actors are storytellers. It's just a word which is used a lot in our times right now.
But I think in your case in particular, I wanted to bring it up because I think that part of the essence of your work is as a storyteller. I mean, some of this is quite obvious, but building a narrative around photographs, creating fictional photographs, and making a story. Also, there's a wonderful catalog of the show that was at George Eastman in Minneapolis, in which you go into some detail about your experience in Lower Manhattan. And in particular, there's another body of work that I wanted to make sure that we mentioned, which is called Punks, Poets, and Provocateurs. And apparently it's work from 1977 to 1982. And it's many of the people from the downtown community, from theater and from music and from art, who were doing something very important at the time and who have influenced culture. But you photographed them at a particular time when everyone was so young.
Well, that's how they look now.
Yeah.
We're looking back.
You know, it reminds me of someone like Nan Goldin's work, of course. But there's, again, such a different sensibility.
Yeah.
Your work feels like a celebration. Her work, one could argue, there's always a certain trauma involved. But what your work does really celebrates that moment. And it feels like such a different collaboration with the individuals.
My book Revisions came out of trauma. You know, I had a car accident. I was driving my car and I lost control and I was rear-ended and I smashed the front of the car. And my life passed before me. And I woke up in the hospital and was there for a couple of weeks. And when I was in the hospital, I started to just look at my life. And I had been previously doing landscapes, and in my book C, I included people in the landscapes, looking at the landscapes. So people would photograph from behind, because people were always in the way when I was taking a picture of a landscape. And a lot of the people who I wanted to photograph from behind first asked me to photograph them from the front to create a dynamic, and then they would turn it up. And sometimes my friends were in those particular pictures.
I think
But
Jim Welling, I believe, was one of the participants, and which is in and of itself is notable.
Yeah. There are several notable people.
Yeah.
There's notable people in a lot of my Believe It or Nots. You know, I would use people as models. But this is, with Revisions, it was the first time that I was looking at myself, trying to figure out myself. And so I did like storyboards when I was in the hospital and started writing things. And it's autobiographical.
To give you all a sense of Revisions,
Staged.
I have a couple of the texts that go along with the work. There's one which is a close-up of a very sort of metallic, glittery bra with cotton coming out of it. And the text that goes along with it is, she developed slowly but learned how to stuff her bra so that both sides matched. There's another one, a close-up of an adolescent young girl And often this young girl is wearing saddle shoes, by the way, which I think is a very savvy signifier. A close-up of a young girl with a hula hoop around her waist, and the text that goes with it says, she painted racing stripes on her hula hoop in hopes that it would go faster. So you're dealing with, I guess, your memories of adolescence, the difficulty.
And I used somebody to play the part of me, and I wrote it in the second person.
Mm-hmm. But again, I think what's significant is that you describe this, or you think of it as being from a traumatic situation, and perhaps a description of, at best maybe an unpleasant adolescence that we all, I think, have participated in. But again, you've made it something humorous. You've made it something that we can all relate to, and in a very clever way.
Not all unpleasant.
Not all unpleasant. No, yeah, of course not. But in a very powerful way, extracted from that experience. It extracted things that were funny and clever.
A lot of the photographs aren't really funny, without the combination of the verbiage and the imagery.
The verbiage, right.
Making it, having a sense of irony,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they're sardonic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're. Also, the title is Revisions,
Mm-hmm.
Re-visions,
Mm-hmm.
and that means revisualizations, and I also revised
Mm-hmm.
some of them to
Mm-hmm.
sort of juice them up and make them more exciting than they were.
Well, speaking of visions and revisions and visions again, let's say, what is your relationship to the work now? I mean, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's a very durable. Your bodies of work are very durable through time.
I was ahead of my time.
What's that?
I was ahead of my time. I didn't have an art deal until I was, I guess, 60 years old.
Mm-hmm. Until Deborah,
Yeah.
I believe, you became involved.
Yeah.
But I think one of the interesting things about your work is that it appeared not so much on the gallery wall, but in media.
Yeah.
And I think that's very unusual for the time. And again, this was a time that photographs were beginning to appear on white walls. So I think that was part of the agenda, and part of the proof that a photograph was valuable and worthwhile and had parity with.
Well, I love Boucher's work,
Mm-hmm.
and I always thought books in my head. I think that comes from having to do projects when you're in school.
Mm-hmm.
After I was in school, I taught school
Mm-hmm.
for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very project oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of big ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted my ideas to be in the form of books,
Mm-hmm.
because I loved the concept of somebody on the other side of the world
Mm-hmm.
experiencing what I had created.
Right.
So people who I didn't know being able to,
Sure.
the democracy of it all.
Right. And it's looking at a book is a very intimate experience.
Very
It's an
intimate.
audience of one,
Yeah,
essentially.
and democratic. That's, I was very into things being democratic.
Well, and your relationship to the book and your desire to have a book, and also the book as a conceptual framework, was very much ahead of its time. And we all know that there's a renaissance. Maybe it's not a renaissance, maybe it's an unprecedented relationship to the photographic book and the desire to use that format as a container and as a conceptual with one's work. You were far ahead of your time. Yeah. But I think there's, again, also my relationship to your work back in the day was going to the newsstand, buying a newsprint, seeing the work on a newsprint surface, and it being of that week, of that particular time, as opposed to seeing it on the gallery wall. And I think that's something that's really kind of remarkable. Did deadlines help you make your work? You talk about the idea of the project, but when you were working for magazines, having to...
Oh, deadlines.
Deadlines, yeah.
In the case of Believe It or Not, it was a new thing, deadlines. I used to create my own deadlines, but
right.
I was never good at it, really.
But having an authentic deadline.
Authentic deadlines, I didn't really do that much commercial work, hardly any, except that, yeah, I appreciated getting the work that had deadlines, because I had to make a living,
sure,
in addition to teaching.
Yeah.
But in the case of Believe It or Not, that particular weekly deadline, so a weekly news, was a little disconcerting for me. You know, sometimes, some of them are much better than others. Sometimes I would work on one for a couple of weeks and then put it out. Sometimes I would gang them up, you know, collect like 3. And it's very different than just doing one thing after another. There is the pressure of deadlines is incorporated in the collection. I'd like to do a book of Believe It or Not, but it would be heavily edited.
Why so?
Well, because some of them are much, much better than others.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and also when I went away for the summer, I just created a contest. At the time, there was a water shortage in New York City, so I had a water conservation contest, and I did photographs about the concept of how do you save water, and a lot of the suggestions were made up, but some people wrote to me.
But again, I think it's so significant that your ideas, the results of your ideas would enter into the discourse, would be published almost on a weekly basis. And it's such a different relationship. I guess there is some equivalent to social networking now, to social media. But again, it's a whole different scenario.
Yeah, the kinds of things that people, like on Instagram, when people produce something every day or feel the need to produce something every day, it could be very interesting if they're focusing on something and look at it in different ways every day. I have a big problem with food. Meals every day. I just can't look at it.
But perhaps this could inspire a sardonic and ironic.
Yeah, but I haven't found anybody who can do Instagrams of their meals and elicit any kind of response from me. I don't know.
But perhaps it's a good time for you to bring your sensibility and your understanding and your to the ethos of food photography and to your own series that doesn't even have to be on Instagram.
Oh,
But to parody.
sure. Anything can be looked at like that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just talking about the proliferation of people not having an idea about what they were going to do and take a picture of their breakfast. I mean, you can look at their breakfasts, and if it's every day.
But again, of course, it's such a different time because everybody now has the phone in their pocket, and apparently they want to memorialize every moment
Right.
of their life, which some could argue is a form of narcissism. Whereas in the era that we're talking about, the 1970s, 1980s, into the 90s, photography was a whole different ritualized situation, and one had a certain amount of frames available on that roll of film, and it's just a different relationship to photography has been.
When photography became digital, that's when everything changed. Everything became, photographs became more immediate.
Mm-hmm.
You could see them exactly. I remember doing a photo session, and I never did a lot of photographs. I would do like one roll of film, maybe 2 rolls of film in a photo session, except for Mick Jagger. I did a lot.
Except for Mick Jagger.
Yeah, I did a lot more than 2 rolls.
Mm-hmm.
But
because Mick Jagger would be the person to encourage one to be more promiscuous with their
well, he's the one who probably photographs of him would be worth more money in different. That's more of the way I was thinking. Although I loved the way he looked, and I loved the potentials of his face and his body and the way he moved.
Are you two in touch? Do you speak every day?
But yeah, I mean, each person that I photographed. Anyway, getting down to just do. I remember I was talking about doing a studio session, and like out of the roll of film, I usually, I just was looking for the best photograph. And I would always know intuitively, this is something that developed over the years of taking photographs. The knowledge of knowing when you got it without having seen it immediately.
Right, yeah.
That's a special
That's a remarkable thing that one forgets. That you didn't have the immediacy of seeing what the picture was, nor did the person that you're photographing ask to see it.
Well, I still have that feeling when I take a lot of pictures and you're seeking one good picture and you can get that feeling. And just use that one picture. Once again, I'm very careful, assiduous about what I put out into the world because of the proliferation of images.
Sure.
I just want to put good stuff out.
But in terms of that, you must have a tremendous archive of outtakes.
I did.
From all of the portraits that you made.
From all of the books that I made.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, all the outtakes from revisions would be so interesting because I tried. So with staging your photographs, you have to try different things until you get exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And you make the decisions very quickly, whereas when you look through your work again, there are certain things that you might not have noticed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm doing that right now.
Right, good.
I'm going through all my work over again, and I'm seeing, first of all, some of the early work. I can't believe that I took. You know, I just
When
don't.
you say early, what era are we talking about? During university?
School,
Okay.
you know, in the early 70s, even the late 60s. You know, I look at these things and pictures of people, I have no idea who the people are.
Right.
I even have pictures of bands that I did sessions with.
No memory of it.
And
you need a historian. You need to
yeah,
figure this out.
it doesn't. I mean, not that. Usually, I know
Yeah.
who they are, but I'm seeing things I never saw.
Yeah. The body of work, which again is now called punks, poets, and provocateurs, and there's several different generations of bad boys.
It's also about how the Beats influenced the punks.
Yeah. There's remarkable pictures of William Burroughs with Allen Ginsberg, etc. And then there's pictures of the Mud Club community back in the day. And one of the things that strikes me about those pictures is the tenderness of them. There's, for example, there's a picture of Gary, Indiana, which I think is deserving of mention. It almost he feels to me almost like a character out of Egon Schiele painting. And there's something, you photographed him with such vulnerability. And it's a lovely, beautiful picture. But throughout those images, you've made pictures of guys, of boys who are part of the scene, and sometimes it is a fairly aggressive community. But there's such a tenderness, again, to them. And I think there's a sense of you, and I'm presuming something here, there's a sense of you as a female photographer, and being able to exert control over how these guys are depicted. So many of them seem to be on the floor, for example, which is
I went through different stages when I was taking those pictures, because it was over a period of years, and I played with like distance, like, well, they're all like very relatively close. Sometimes I did full bodies, sometimes I used 55 macro lens and got really close to their faces.
there's never wasted information in your pictures, never.
Well,
But go ahead.
really, anyway, I went through my odorless phase where I just wanted to do odorless of men. Because odorless are women. And then there were my
particular subservience.
Yeah, I didn't think of it as that.
Yeah.
But also, well, there's an aspect of that too, like slamming them down on the floor and looking down. But once again, if they were not amenable to this, you know, there's a give and take. I learned more and more as I was doing portraits of people, other people, men. You know, I did photographs of women when I was photographing men, but I was very, well, the women's liberation movement was also like around that time, and so I was able to do a lot of things because of that. Like I got a job right out of grad school.
Well, I think one could argue that there's a feminist thread throughout the work. It's not explicit, but it's very much there, considering the work within that.
I wasn't embraced by the feminists at the time.
Why was that?
I remember I did this poster for WCBS radio. I actually built the radio when I was in school. I got the job when I was at Cooper Union. And I put a doll's head on it, doll's legs, and doll's arms. and the legs
And it's
were-
an old-fashioned radio.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's, it got curves like a woman.
Yeah.
And between the legs, sort of, the legs are sort of a little open.
A little, yeah. Yeah.
And it says, "Let me entertain you."
Right.
And I actually had my name was printed on. It was a subway post.
Right.
It was an ad in magazines. It was everywhere.
And was there a lot of pushback?
There was a lot of graffiti. Pushback.
Mm-hmm. But in a way, that's a form of dialogue, which can be
Absolutely.
quite interesting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't really.
But this goes back to the fact that your work has been, as you make it, it has become public in ways that art photography was not part of the public conversation then. And again, I think that's to its credit.
Yeah.
One last thing I did, Peter Hujar, we're talking about portraits with people, and we comment.
Yeah.
Was Peter Hujar part of your community, and were you familiar?
I didn't know him, but I was familiar with his work.
Right. Yeah.
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 But I wasn't really that familiar with the work he was making at the time that I was making work
Nice.
so much, because he didn't have a million galleries.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have.
Well, there was no place in which, unless there was an Ansel Adams
Yeah, right.
situation.
Right.
Yeah. But again, it is, to me, it's so much of the character of the work that it was inserted into the public sphere, into the public conversation at the time. And it was so, again, just going back to my own experience of the Soho movement. Yeah. Marcia, I want to thank you so much for meeting with me today and talking some things over and just sharing in the pleasure of your work.
You're welcome, and thank you for talking.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone.